after COVID-19, the world will not be the same again. The economy will not be the same again. We're talking about social distancing. It may well be an economy with very little contact, much less person-to-person contact. If you're running a financial institution, a bank, for example, with a very big branch network, you have to think as to what the next step might be, isn't it? It is already presenting to Hong Kong and to many other places a very big challenge. You need to look ahead, you need to see the big picture, you need to have a holistic perspective on what is likely to come and position yourself accordingly. I would like them to be thinking in terms of preventing the next crisis affecting them. There is a Chinese saying called 居安思危, and translated into English it could well be make hay while the sun shines. In my HKMA times, I spent a lot of time thinking through these issues. Once I identified something that might present problems to ourselves, you better do something before things happen. If you look at our exchange rate system, for example, that at this point of time, the link exchange rate system is a lot different from that one introduced in October 1983. The basic philosophy is the same. The Hong Kong dollar is fixed to the US dollar with currency board arrangements, etc., etc. It's all the same, but in the meantime, between 1983 and 2005, there were various things done. Initially, we took indirect control of the monetary base, and then we took direct control on the monetary base. At the same time, we created instruments for operating in the market, and then we were explicit in giving convertibility undertakings to whoever that wants to buy and sell Hong Kong dollar against US dollars. It becomes a very transparent, a very robust system. If we hadn't done anything, I doubt if we could have survived 2008. I doubt if we could have survived quite a number of other events. So you need to think ahead. You need to make hay while the sun shines. And obviously, if there is nothing that you need to change, you have to be prepared for the next crisis. Build up the instruments, have it up your sleeves, and you will feel comfortable when it occurs, and then you can pull it out of your safe. I did that a few times. Now, in Hong Kong, realistically, as an international financial center, what would you be focusing on? It is the financial intermediation between the mainland of China and the rest of the world. Now, some people have criticized Hong Kong, the financial system of Hong Kong getting to be too China-oriented. If there is no China or the mainland of China, there is no international financial intermediation that we can do. If somebody wanted to do financial intermediation between Europe and America, why should they come to Hong Kong? There is a natural need, particularly when the mainland economy is still relatively closed, the financial system there is relatively closed, yet there is clear intention on the part of the mainland to embrace financial globalization because they do want to diversify their investment avenues and their funding sources. And that's where Hong Kong comes in. That is our role as an international financial center. If you ask me to measure the success of an international financial center, look at the amount of money that has gone through Hong Kong in the equity market, the amount of IPO that we have in Hong Kong is the highest in the world. If you look at the banking sector, banking assets as a percentage of GDP is the highest in the world. Now, I'm aware of comments made by a number of people in the context of the national security law that Hong Kong's status as an international financial center will be undermined. I'm puzzled by this sort of comments because what has been affecting Hong Kong as an international financial center was the social unrest that we have experienced in the past year. What contributed to our freest economy status, number one in the world, being relegated to number two, is again the social unrest. Now, national security legislation hopefully will form the foundation of social order and safety returning to Hong Kong. Now, that must be good for investors and fundraisers from the mainland or from the rest of the world, as well as the financial intermediaries who are providing these services in Hong Kong. Safety in society is very important to them. And with the return of social order to Hong Kong, I think our position as an international financial center will strengthen. Another point is the intensification of rhetoric or maybe even action arising from the geopolitical tension between the US and China. In the context of discussion about the national security law, there was talked about restricting the fundraising or investment activity of China in the US, or even the availability of the US dollar as a medium of international transaction for use by Chinese enterprises or companies. Now, that actually is very worrying. But if that were to happen, then those companies or institutions used to be raising funds in the US market could well migrate back and back to Hong Kong, which then furthermore would strengthen our position as an international financial center. But I really don't like to see that sort of thing happening, but if that were to happen, that might then be the result.